Hello class, I am still grading your digital literacy and your Google Slides lesson activities, but let's go right into the next assignment because you should now immediately start preparing for this next assignment so that we can be sure to finish up in time for grades to be due. This is very important because now we enter TPACK, and the readings are just like the textbook. Remember, you do not have a textbook that you purchase, so you must complete the readings before you can complete the assignments. The TPACK lesson is what will be used for your EE9 evidence on your task stream portfolio. So you can't earn a grade for this course. You can't complete your teacher education program until you have successfully written a lesson that follows the TPACK framework. I wanted to send you this recording because I'm sure you have questions about what I mean when I say framework. If you go into this first set of readings, consider this like the first chapter in your textbook, TPACK Explained. I've added this just this morning, and it's just kind of a summary statement. TPACK is what's known as a framework. It is not a lesson plan. A framework is kind of like a blueprint, or it's kind of like a roadmap. You follow that in order to write your lesson plan. You're going to plug in the parts to the framework, but then later you can use the parts in that framework to write a more formal 6-point lesson plan. So it's two different ways to achieve the same goal. You want to write a lesson for your students to complete in the classroom. You may follow the TPACK framework, or you can write a 6-point lesson plan. But the purpose in the TPACK framework is to make sure that you follow a systematic way of including technology in your lesson. And in the first couple assignments, you've already read and shown that you understand the importance of technology and digital literacy in today's classrooms. It's not an option. If you don't include digital resources in your lessons, you are not providing your students with what they need to be successful when they grow up and enter the workforce. So this is important. So this first part right here is just a statement I've added explaining what is this animal called TPACK. Then when you go into this next one right here, TPACK Explained, this is the original creator of TPACK. This is his website. Actually, it's two men, and they have published a lot of research on TPACK, and it's been shown to be successful for preparing classroom lessons that use digital resources. Now you say technology, but remember, technology is any tool used for a specific purpose to achieve a goal or an objective. And so, but digital resources are a type of technology. The original TPACK has three main components. These first three bullet points: content, pedagogy, and technology. Those are the three main components, and you'll see that over and over again in these readings and lessons. And the circle, the TPACK circle, will show up. Let's see, I believe I have it included in this. I do. All right, let me turn off this sound. Okay, this is a YouTube. This is a lecture within this lecture that I'm giving you right now. And this is a very detailed lecture in what TPACK is and how it's applied in 4001 lesson activities. And you might be able to see the circles, the yellow, pink, and blue circles. They represent those three components: content, pedagogy technology. You will learn through this lesson exactly what that means. So you're going to view, you're going to read this. You might not read all the links, but you'll read the main parts of this page right here. Then you'll view my lecture here. This is a second lecture. And so you'll have to log in too, by the way that was inserted. You have to log in. Let's see. Yep, it's going to let me take it. This is a video that I created last fall, but it's going to maybe reinforce what you view in the first video. And I think you might find it's kind of a welcome break.
Hello, class. This is Dr. Brown. TPACK, which is an acronym for Technology, Pedagogy, and Content Knowledge for K-12 class.
Okay, I had to close that out because it's giving me competition in my own lecture here. So let me go back into the Blackboard. I think you might find it kind of a welcome change to listen to these lectures that I've provided rather than reading so very much. There's just a lot to be read in an online course, but the videos that I prepared, I think, will kind of give you a little bit of break in the reading and just give you a more multimodal way of learning. So now let's go into the next folder in the readings. I'm back in the readings for this next assignment. We've looked at this one that says TPACK Explained, which has links to the main website on TPACK, and it also has several videos that I have provided to help you understand these three components of TPACK. Now, the TPACK lesson that goes into your test stream portfolio will be graded based on how well you complete the TPACK template, and you'll see that later. And also it'll be graded on how well you've based your lesson planning on learning theory. Now I know you have experienced some different theories in your various classes, some more than others, because those of you who are maybe at junior level, you might not have had as much. But these articles right here will provide some theories of learning that you can use these, and you'll have sufficient knowledge for including the theoretical base for your lesson. Now, what does that mean? Whenever you write a lesson, you just don't make up something because you think it's going to be fun or colorful or motivational. When you're teaching, you have to plan your instruction based on proven theories of learning. And you'll see right here, this handout right here, this, open it up, has the 4 basic theories of learning that we rely on. It's opening now. Give it a moment. Here it is. These 4 basic theories of learning, and let me enlarge that. These are what we usually rely on in the field of instructional technology. And remember, 4001 is all about instructional technology. And so these 4 main theories of learning are generative learning, behaviorist learning, constructivist learning, and social learning theory. Now, these are very short, abbreviated. I mean, there are entire books written on each of these theories. There are certainly chapters in books written on each of these 4 theories, but you'll have enough here that you can say, I know that my lesson plan reflects this theory of learning. Generative learning is applied when students create something in the learning process. Students do a research project on animal habitats. They gather images that show different habitats. They read descriptions of each habitat, and then they prepare a report and present it with a slide presentation. In that process, they've learned about animal habitats, and that is what is known as generative learning. Other ways for generative learning to occur is students to write their own test questions, writing summaries and outlines. Those are considered generative learning experiences. Any type of created poster or bulletin board is also generative learning. Now, sometimes these overlap, and that's okay, but you look for the main theory that you think best reflects your lesson plan in the TPACK framework. Behaviorist learning is more common with younger children. They will respond to reward, and that's what behaviorism is all about. The learner will memorize or gain a skill well enough they could complete it perfectly, and then they're rewarded. Usually in school, rewards are things like grades, smiley faces, or sometimes treats on Friday. Those are the rewards that the learner can receive for behaviorism. Now, behaviorist learning is the most basic on Bloom's taxonomy, and it's usually something memorized, and it's necessary. It is important. Drill and practice is important, but it's entry level learning. From that point, you want students to begin generating their learning or cognitivist learning. Lesson plans like this are very frequently the kinds of things that students would do with a research project. And even young children can do that. You just need to make sure that they have some kind of a think sheet with their project to guide their thinking processes. You want to make sure that they start out with a good, well-framed question. Don't just look up stuff. Don't just gather information. Students need to be able to look for information that answers specific questions and research questions. And you'll remember that was one of the NET standards, to be able to identify needed information, or that was one of the definitions of digital literacy, to be able to identify information that's useful for solving a problem or answering a question. All right, then social learning theory. This is one that we're all very familiar with. We just didn't know that it was based on this theoretical base called social learning theory. This is when students work together in groups to answer questions and solve problems. Jigsaw groups are popular. Think, pair, share activities are social learning theory. Even when students have email exchanges or exchange blogs for commenting, that would be social learning theory. So those are the theories that when you write your lesson, you'll need to be able to match up to the right theory. Okay, let's go now to the next part of this assignment in the readings. I'm backing up on Blackboard now. And we've looked at learning theory. Now we look at instructional strategies. And this is something I know many of you don't know what that means. You probably have talked about lesson activities or projects, or you have talked about methods for teaching in the classroom. All of those are more of a big picture kind of an idea for teaching. How am I going to manage a classroom with 25 children and ensure that they have learned their this week's skills for reading according to the curriculum, scope and sequence of the curriculum? That is the big picture of teaching and teaching methods. Instructional strategies are in the family of instructional technology, and they are actual ways to teach to make sure that students learn what you want them to learn. So an instructional strategy always starts out with the learning objective, what students will be able to say and do at the end of the lesson using the strategy that you have provided. Here are some instructional strategies that are suitable for middle and high school. If you're especially in math and science, how to use Excel spreadsheets for problem solving. These are instructional strategies. Practice and rehearsal is instructional strategies that mainly use drill and practice and would go into the category, the theoretical category for behaviorism, but it is important. Here's some instructional strategies for children K-4, more instructional strategies for children in K through 4. You'll have to open these documents, but you will see. So open this up. There we go. All right. And there we go. We can see it now. This is a table that includes a type of resource, a digital resource, handheld technologies, software, web-based technologies. Then in this column is the matching content area. And then over here it describes what the strategy itself. For example, with the handheld technologies, the content area, reading and writing, eBook Studio allows students to write their own books on handheld devices, including images for publication. So we just learned about images and how to use those appropriately. So if you were to use this resource in your lesson, and whoops, that one I'll have to go back and check. Some of these, they are gone before I can even present the lesson. So I'll have to find out how that one is supposed to open up. But here's another one that's on writing. And I think I know what's happening here. My apologies, class. I'm going to have to go back and make sure those open in a new window, and I'll fix this immediately. But these websites, these are online resources that you can use with elementary age children in these content areas. And you can pull from these to plan your TPACK lesson. So there's 2 different pages of those that have been added to this part of your readings. So now I'm going to go back. Let me go back again, one more, make sure I haven't forgotten anything that I want to point out to you. What is TPACK? All right. Instructional strategies. Okay. Underneath the instructional strategies, these are about 4 or 5 links to some of the better digital resources, because digital content is what students are using these days in schools. And so you can find a lot of good resources here, taking from any of these to help you plan your TPACK lesson. And what's our big goal here? To become familiar enough with the resources, the content, and how you're going to teach, which is the pedagogy, to put together the TPACK framework. For this assignment, due next weekend, you have study questions. So you will get right to work on these and answer these study questions and upload them to the Dropbox. When you complete these study questions, and remember, this is what? Generative learning. You are generating your knowledge based on answers that you dig out yourself from the readings. So you answer these and upload these. You'll earn your points, but you'll also learn about TPACK. So let me give you, I don't want to overload you. You can overload students with just too much information. But next assignment after this one, after you've learned what TPACK is, Then you'll start thinking about, and then go backwards, you'll start thinking about your TPACK lesson for your task stream. And that will be right here, how to plan your TPACK lesson. And the TPACK template that you'll plug in, because if you're like me, you need to see the big picture before you start looking at details. But the TPACK template looks like this. You'll plug in your standards, and there's two standards, one content area, one the technology standards. You'll describe skills that students will be able to do. For example, students will identify and describe the main elements of any fiction story. That would be their skill. Content, reading, language arts. See? So you fill in this part. And then here, the pedagogy, and you'll learn how to do this, all the parts of how you will teach and why you will teach it the way you do. Then the third part, the technology, here you list your resources and you explain step by step how you use those resources in your lesson. Okay, the one thing about this lecture is you'll be able to repeat this until if it was confusing for you and too much information at one time, you can repeat this and go through it. But by now, you should be reading these assigned readings. And I'll certainly be glad to answer questions by email if I can help you in any way. Look for the grades on your digital literacy assignment today or tomorrow.